Nancy is a more qualified candidate to lead the U.S. men's national team for 2026?
It's not even close. It's not even close. I will kick this thing off by saying, and I would love to hear your Vieira argument. I think Vieira's had more than a few stints already as head coach of certain teams, right?
That haven't gone well.
That haven't gone well.
But
we both
as well
know that.
have gone well.
Sure. And I think so many fans are attached emotionally to who he was as a player. And I get that, man. I'm an Arsenal fan, for those who don't know.
It's very controversial.
It is very controversial for me. And I kind of feel the same way about Thierry Henry. I think that they're not every...
And he was also in the pool, apparently, too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not every player...
And maybe the U.S. men's national team have, like, an Arsenal fetish. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, it's hard not to, let's be honest. I think it's not every player needs to be a manager when their career is done. I'm not sure if we can automatically say that for Vieira just yet, but look at what Wilfried Nancy is doing and how he's absolutely shaped this Columbus Crew team in his vision to be something that I think not just Columbus Crew fans love, but MLS fans love. I can't think, outside of Cincy fans, I really can't think of another fan base that adamantly hates Columbus and how they play. Can you imagine what this U.S. men's national team would look like with the amount of freedom that a manager like Wilfried Nancy would give them and the dynamism they would give them after having to deal with a manager like Berhalter, which, keep in mind, right, that's a very similar path to what's happened here at the Crew.
Okay.
After Berhalter getting let go, and now Wilfried Nancy.
I'm going to pause you there.
Okay.
I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions.
Sure.
Just give me the answers. We'll keep it straight. Who was the last U.S. men's national team coach?
Greg Berhalter.
Okay. Who was the last club that Greg Berhalter coached before the U.S. men's national team?
I want to say it's the Crew.
Okay, nice. So we're 2 for 2 there. And then what club does Wilfried Nancy coach right now?
The Columbus Crew.
Okay, so do you see how this might be a small pattern here? Obviously, Nancy was able to win an MLS Cup with the Columbus Crew, unlike Greg Berhalter. And like we've done so many videos where I've praised Wilfried Nancy, and I would kill for him to be a coach for the Sounders in the future. But is the U.S. men's national team job just a little bit too much of a jump for him? I don't know his previous pedigree outside of an MLS with Montreal and with Columbus. So I don't know the history for him in his coaching career. But from the small sample size that I have seen, I think he's a good coach. I think he's really good for MLS. But that doesn't always translate to a great coach for the U.S. men's national team. I think right now, for the U.S. men's national team, they need a coach that has European experience, also has experience with U.S. soccer, which the current rumored coach is going to be Patrick Vieira, who I think has that. Yes, has had some bumps in the road. Which coach has not had bumps in the road? Obviously, he's not the perfect coach, but the reality is, I know that the U.S. men's national team are hosting a 2026 World Cup, but the U.S. men's national team are just an okay national team. They're not one of the upper echelon national teams. They're not one of the worst national teams. They're just kind of there.
No. They're a top 15 team in the world.
No, they're not. They can't even be a team ranked 20th or higher in the FIFA World Rankings.
Fair play. Everyone's going to point to the recent Copa America exit. I get it.
I didn't even bring that up.
Yes, but what I'm saying is, yes, in major tournaments as of late under Berhalter.
But they're good in CONCACAF. But that doesn't mean squat did.
So you're saying the players themselves are the issue, not the manager?
No, I'm saying it's both. It comes out. It's not always one finger can be pointed at one person or the other. I think a heavy part of it was Berhalter. But there's always these issues with the U.S. men's national team with certain players. We've seen it with Gio, with Serginho Dest.
Maybe with this generation, but previous generations didn't necessarily have these types of issues.
Yeah,
right?
And weirdly enough, with coaches that were slightly worse and a worse team, were able to achieve just that little bit more.
Yes,
in my opinion.
I agree. But do you not see the parallels between Berhalter and Vieira? Do you not see the fact that every time these managers have left a club, they've gotten better?
Parallels, no.
Oh man, there's so much. Whether it's
Berhalter and Vieira,
when Vieira left NYCFC, when Vieira left Palace, Glasser came in 7 months, accomplished way more than Vieira's ever done at Palace. When Vieira left NYCFC, did they not go on to win a title the very next season?
But he's helping. But you could argue maybe he's helping build foundations for both of these clubs. A lot of the players that have bursted on the scene would not be on the scene if it wasn't for Vieira putting in their trust. Like let's say Elise, like no one knew who the fuck Elise was before Patrick Vieira gave him a shot.
Fair. I mean, of course,
Or
some
Eze,
Palace fans.
yeah.
He had a little bit of bouncing around in England before he eventually established himself. I agree, and being able to ID players is fantastic. Maybe he deserves a place with the national team, right? I actually wouldn't even mind seeing Vieira having a spot maybe under a manager like Wilfried Nancy, who I feel like just is more of a tactician, maybe even more of a man motivator. I also like the fact that there's zero nepotism with this man. Zero. I feel like with Berhalter, there was so much of that. I don't know if that's going to be the case with Vieira, but watching Wilfried Nancy bench Cucho at one of the most crucial times of this season, going into the biggest matches. Absolutely.
But that's why I think he's a good coach in MLS. I just don't know. I want to maybe see Nancy coach in Europe first, because this is like a very sensitive time for U.S. soccer, because they need a good coach, because they're hosting this World Cup. I don't know how people have these outlandish expectations they're going to make a semifinal of a World Cup. I mean, the last World Cup, they just barely made the round of 16. Yeah, they're hosting it, but I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference.
It's host nation bias. It's like Korea making the semifinal in 2002.
But that's a different realm, and that's Asian football. We all know Asian football is clear of CONCACAF. I'm just saying, that's a whole other debate.
Whole other debate.
But yes, there's a lot of pressure for the U.S., and I think realistically a good run for them would be a quarterfinal run, which would match their best ever run in a World Cup.
I think it has to exceed that.
No, I know. That's just my view, though. I think that's a good run, I think, for the U.S. men's national team, is making it to the quarterfinal. Semifinal, I think, is exceeding expectations. Round of 16 is going just below par.
Fine.
I don't even think Vieira was necessarily the perfect choice. I don't think he's the worst choice, like from the pool of options that we saw. But compared to Nancy, I do think he is the better option, because he has a pedigree of coaching in U.S. soccer. He has a pedigree of coaching in Europe. He's also a player that probably a lot of the other players respected or watched growing up, which obviously doesn't always translate to him being a good coach, but that does.
It can.
It can help. It garners respect.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah, and so I think for the current situation, it is a good appointment. It's a smart appointment. I don't think it was the best option. I don't think it was the worst option. In my opinion, the best option was Hervé Renard. But I'm glad he didn't pick them, because I still have some biases. I want him to go coach Iran. Fingers crossed, maybe one day we'll see that. But,
maybe. But
nonetheless, I think Nancy has a lot of potential.
Look, it's a risk either way, because neither of these guys are national team managers, right? They're club managers. So if it's going to be risky, how do you mitigate that risk?
Sure.
I think you look at what they're doing lately. Don't you find it odd that Vieira hasn't found his next role since exiting Palace? Like, he hasn't been able to get his feet grounded somewhere because of how poorly that spell went. And I mean, that's that, Palace fans that had to endure Roy Hodgson since then. They were willing to bring back 80-year-old Roy as opposed to keeping Patrick Vieira.
It's football heritage, man.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I think Wilfried Nancy, look, he's got a long-term contract at Columbus. That's probably the biggest obstacle to overcome here. I know he wants to go do Europe, and maybe finding a way to, in an 18-month spell with the U.S. men's national team, create that opportunity for himself beyond. If he can get them to, like you said, a quarterfinal, hell, maybe even a semifinal through some dark arts magic in the tournament, who knows, man? I just feel like, despite how the CONCACAF Champions Cup final went, I feel like how Columbus approached those massive games, those massive moments, because that's what football is. It's a game of moments.
When you think moments of they weren't going to go through, or like, oh, this is where an MLS
when they travel down to
yeah.
Monterrey, dude, to go into that very hostile atmosphere and put on a show for crew fans everywhere and get the absolute best out of his team amidst some controversy with the dynamic between him and Cucho Hernandez. I feel like there's that speaks volumes of what you can expect when he gets a better pool of players. And granted, he doesn't know these players very well, fine, but maybe that's for the better. Maybe that these players don't need to be comfortable. They need a scenario where they're uncomfortable so they can grow beyond what we've seen up to this point. Because I agree, the development of these players over the last 2 years has not been there, not compared to the expectation. So
I will say, though, too, just one small point is, whoever did take this job, this is probably something they all thought about. It's a high risk, high reward job. Because if you fail here, you're probably not going to get another gig. And the thing is with Nancy, I will say is, if I was in his shoes, you're high rolling, you're doing really well in MLS, US, you're starting to pick up in the US soccer realm. Why maybe risk that for a gig that you don't have a lot of time with compared to a lot of other managers. You didn't get the full cycle with. You're getting a little bit of a shorter term with it, and then you're going to have to lead this nation with a lot of expectations, a lot of pressure to do God's work in that tournament. So maybe part of him was thinking, it's not a risk I really need to take because I'm pretty comfortable and I'm pretty confident I'll still get that next move and get to where I want to be. Unlike Vieira, who is a little bit more desperate. And that, hey, yeah, and maybe that desperation comes with that reaping reward of, him being successful because he knows he has to do well here, or it might be Gigi's first coaching career.
Yeah, maybe. I still feel like Vieira, because of who he is, will get opportunities. They may not be the opportunities he wants, but he will definitely get opportunities. Maybe even MLS at some point down the road. And don't be wrong, I would hate for MLS to lose a coach like Nancy that I feel like is setting the standard for what managers should be aiming to replicate. It's not just wins. Wins are one thing. It is how they play. And more importantly, getting the necessary results, which this team, like you said, has not done. When's the last time they beat a top 20 team in the world? I need to see that, and I feel like it's because of how they choose to play this game.
And as well, their percentage of beating teams outside of CONCACAF is not that high.
No, it's not.
It's pretty.
And on home soil, that is just not acceptable. And I almost feel like Vieira would just give us maybe a slight bump, but more of what we've seen under Berhalter, even under BJ Callahan, who I will say had a good little Nations League run when he took over.
I know this is super controversial and slightly off topic, but I feel like that whole BJ Callahan stint was so overrated. Yeah, he won the Nations League, it was cool.
They were playing better. They were playing better,
sure, but to just base it off of 2-3 games and be like,
that's what you're going to get in the World Cup. You're going to get 3 games, and if you do it right, you get to advance. And then from there, it's one game at a time. And I think that's important.
But it's in CONCACAF. Again, this is a whole different dog you're dealing with here. A whole different animal.
All you can do is play the schedule that you have.
I understand, but all these CONCACAF games are just little boy stuff. Like cool, you beat Trinidad. Cool, you beat Jamaica. But these are all cool, you're beating this horrendously down bad Mexico team. Good for you. Pat on the back. You guys are fucking amazing. But
yeah.
In my opinion, I don't think BJ Callahan was the right guy. You do need a good coach, and I do think, as I said, I think Hervé Renard was the right guy. I still think Patrick Vieira is still a good option. I think a lot of maybe U.S. soccer fans might be overlooking that, and that might be due to ego or status.
Maybe Iran should take him then. I'm totally cool with that.
Who, Patrick Vieira?
Yeah.
I would take him.
You would take him?
Yeah, 100%.
Fair enough.
See, that's because I'm humble. I know soccer. I know it'll pan out well, but I don't know for all U.S. soccer fans.
Yeah, that's fair. I will say the fan base is, in its own right, in a really weird point right now, right? I don't think we really even know what we want. But I think if you just take a step back and you look at what Nancy, what he took on when he took the Columbus job, what he's done with it, what he's accomplished since then.
And we can't even also forget Montreal as well.
Yeah.
I think he also really helped change the trajectory of that club when he was there.
And try to translate that to what's possible with a better pool of players, right? And granted, these players, personality-wise and mentality-wise, might be different than U.S. teams we've seen in the past. They might not have that, I know you hate this word, that dog in them, right? But at the end of the day, man, I think if you give a manager like Wilfried Nancy more talent to play with, he should be able to deliver results based on what we've seen so far. But I guess the fans in the comments will let us know.
But nonetheless, either of these coaches is better than Greg Berhalter.
We can agree. We agree right there, 100%.